The night the sky broke was the night Orion's world changed forever. He remembered standing on the ridge behind his village, watching the horizon glow with an otherworldly shimmer, an aurora that shouldn't have existed in a land where stars usually slept behind clouds. The villagers had gathered in frightened silence, pointing toward the heavens as if afraid their breath alone could shatter the fragile beauty unfolding above them. Arion felt it first before anyone else, a pulse, like a heartbeat reverberating through the earth, traveling up through his bare feet and curling around his spine. It was not the pulse of fear but the pulse of destiny, though he wouldn't understand that until much later. The aurora suddenly cracked like glass, sending streams of light plunging downward toward the forest beyond the northern cliffs. The sound was like thunder yet also like a great gasp from the universe itself, as though the world had witnessed something forbidden. The elders screamed for everyone to take cover, but Arion couldn't move. Something in that falling light called him, not with words but with something older, deeper, woven into the marrow of his bones. He felt his heart clench as one particular trail of light spiraled downward toward the cliffs, cutting through the darkness like a blade of gold fire. That was when the ground trembled violently, forcing him to his knees. The villagers scattered, doors slammed, and torches fell. Arion pushed himself up and sprinted toward the cliffs, ignoring the voices behind him begging him to stop. Every instinct screamed that he was running toward the source of something monumental, something tied to him long before he ever breathed his first breath. When he reached the cliffside, he found a crater surrounded by shards of glowing crystal. At the center lay a massive, wing-shaped fragment pulsing with white heat. The moment he approached, the lights in the crystal reacted, swirling inward like galaxies shrinking into a single star. A rush of wind exploded outward, nearly hurling him back, and the sky dimmed as if the universe were holding its breath. Then a voice, not heard with his ears but resonating directly inside his consciousness, whispered his name, Arion. He froze. No one should have known his name out here. The voice was neither human nor monstrous, it was ancient, layered, carrying the tone of something that had seen centuries rise and fall. The crystal cracked, releasing a spiral of energy that wrapped around Orion's wrist like a living ribbon. He screamed as a searing heat burned into his skin, etching a mark glowing like molten gold. For a moment, he saw visions, cities made of light, colossal beings with wings like constellations, and a war so devastating it tore the sky apart. And in the final flash, he saw himself, a silhouette standing at the edge of a great chasm, wielding a blade forged from pure starlight. Arion collapsed, trembling, as the aurora faded entirely, plunging the world into unnatural darkness. When he finally staggered back to the village, everyone stared at him with a mixture of awe and terror. The mark on his wrist still glowed faintly, proof that something impossible had happened. The elders refused to speak of the falling lights, muttering about omens and the return of the Skyborn war, but Arion sensed they knew far more than they admitted. That night, he dreamed, not like regular dreams but memories that didn't belong to him. He saw the winged beings again, fierce and majestic, fighting against monstrous shadows that moved like smoke and hunger. He saw a brilliant figure, a warrior of light, reach toward him, murmuring, "Find the key of dawn." Before the darkness awakens, Arion jolted awake drenched in sweat. His wrist throbbed, the mark now pulsed in rhythm. With his heartbeat, as if alive, he knew what he had to do. The fallen sky had chosen him, and the visions were not accidents, they were warnings. Something ancient was returning, something powerful enough to shatter worlds. And only he held the first piece of the key to stopping it. Leaving a note for his mother, he grabbed his cloak, a piece of dried bread, and the old compass his father left behind before disappearing years ago. As dawn bled across the horizon, Arion stepped beyond the village border for the first time in his life. The world felt different now, bigger, heavier, as if expecting him. He didn't know where the path would lead, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty: the sky had fallen for a reason, and whatever destiny awaited him in its aftermath had already begun. Orion's journey carried him across forests veined with silver rivers, through mountains that howled with ancient winds, and into ruins where echoes of forgotten civilizations murmured warnings he couldn't yet decipher. The mark on his wrist served as both guide and burden, pulsing warmer when he neared something significant and turning cold when shadows drew too close. On the fifth night of his journey, beneath a sky where the stars refused to appear, he encountered the first of the strange creatures foretold in his visions. It appeared at the edge of his firelight, its body fluid like black smoke, its eyes glowing with hollow hunger. Arion froze, the mark on his arm blazing with golden fire as though awakening of its own accord. The creature lunged, its form splitting into tendrils of shadow that hissed as they slashed through the air. Arion thrust his arm forward instinctively, and a burst of light erupted from the mark, obliterating the creature in a flash so brilliant it left afterimages dancing across the trees. He collapsed, gasping, shaken by the realization that whatever gift the fallen sky had bestowed upon him was powerful and dangerous. As he recovered, a hooded stranger stepped out from between the trees, applauding slowly. "Not bad for a newly awakened lightbearer," the figure said, revealing herself as a woman with silver hair and eyes like fractured crystal. She introduced herself as Lysara, a seeker of the Old Order, one of the last guardians of knowledge about the Skyborn War. She claimed she had sensed the Aurora fracture and had been searching for the chosen bearer. Arion didn't trust her fully. Her presence felt too convenient, too well-timed, but he couldn't deny she seemed to know more about his visions and the mark than he did. Lysara explained that the fallen sky was no natural event. A barrier between realms had collapsed, releasing fragments of cosmic essence back into the mortal world. The fragment Arion found was part of the Key of Dawn, an artifact created by the Skyborn to keep the darkness imprisoned. The mark on his wrist wasn't just a symbol, it was a seal binding him to that fragment. As long as he lived, darkness would hunt him. Together they traveled north, where whispers spoke of ancient relics buried beneath the ruins of the first temple. Along the way, Arion learned to harness the energy within him, guiding it from a wild surge into something that resonated like music through his veins. But the darkness grew bolder with each passing day. Villages they passed through were found deserted, livestock drained of life, shadows lingering long after sunrise. One evening, as they crossed the desolate valley of Eldrath, the ground trembled. A colossal creature emerged, its form a swirling mass of night and bone, crowned with horns shaped like broken branches. Lysara yelled for Arion to focus, but fear coiled inside him like ice. The creature roared, and the air rippled violently, even the sunlight dimmed. Arion felt the mark, burning hotter than ever before, urging him to fight, to rise, to become the warrior he had seen in the visions. With trembling hands, he unleashed a torrent of golden light that clashed against the creature's darkness. The valley shook, mountains cracked, and for a moment Arion felt himself dissolve into pure energy. When the light faded, the beast lay shattered, dissolving into ash. But Arion fell to his knees, barely conscious. Lysara caught him, whispering, "You're stronger than you realize, but strength alone won't save you." As they recovered, she told him the truth she had hesitated to reveal earlier: the darkness was not a mindless force. It had a master, the Harbinger, a fallen Skyborn who once wielded the power of starlight but was consumed by envy and despair. He had shattered the sky once before, and he was returning to finish what he began. Only the fully restored Key of Dawn could stop him, and Orion's fragment was merely the first of three. The final revelation shook Arion the hardest. His father had once been a lightbearer too, one of the few who fought during the last uprising of the darkness. His disappearance was no accident. He had fallen in battle, protecting the key fragments, but rumor claimed his essence might still linger somewhere between realms. Arion felt something heavy in his chest: grief, hope, fear, and a spark of determination stronger than anything he'd ever felt. With renewed resolve, Arion and Lysara pressed on, ready to face whatever awaited them. The path was dark, the enemies relentless, but destiny was no longer a distant whisper, it was a storm gathering around him. Arion vowed he would find the rest of the key, uncover the truth about his father, and stop the Harbinger before the world fell into eternal night. For now, though, the journey was just beginning.